feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's
Fun.
Open wide for some soccer.
I don't care what you think about what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the Cowboys.
Call this college rule.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. Chris and Dom here. And before we begin, as always, make sure you subscribe to us on all our socials as well as our YouTube page. We keep putting out that quality content for you. And, smash that like button, hit subscribe. It goes a long way. And also, we record here down in Engle Studio here in Tucson. So come on down for all your audio needs, everyone. And Chris, what are we in the midst of now?
We're still in our block episodes of father and son. I like this duo that we got coming up because they went pro in two different sports.
Yeah.
We got Calvin Hill, and then later we'll be talking about his son.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Calvin G. Hill. Just
G-Money.
G-Money.
I know. I looked. I was like, wait, is there a middle name? Just G.
One fucking letter? No. Calvin Hill, born January 2nd, 1947 in Baltimore, Maryland. His dad, Henry, worked construction. His family had moved from South Carolina up to the Mid-Atlantic, looking for work there. He was an only child, and that'll come into play with Grant as well.
Yep.
Excelled at sports as a youth, though. Pretty much good at everything. And he's a big dude. He's a very big dude. Eventually growing to about 6'4", 227. In ninth grade, though, he gets a very interesting opportunity, Chris.
So he's living in Baltimore, and by what all accounts is that he is excelling in school and on the field.
Very smart man.
Yes. So he gets an invitation to attend a prestigious school, which both has really good sports program and is a really good, school.
He hit the genetic lottery, I guess you could say.
So Riverdale County School in the Bronx.
Yeah, in the Bronx with Calogero and all of them in Bronx Tale. But this is a fun Bronx Tale.
That's right.
Because once he gets to school, he just starts absolutely dominating everything. Like most of the athletes we cover, he's good at everything.
Yeah, literally, it's football, baseball, basketball, track and field. He really excels in track and field, we see. But this...
He's like a large Eric Metcalf.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. When he comes to this school, this is the first time he's actually ever played organized football. Mm-hmm. And he's such an amazing athlete that they're just like, well, I mean, we want the ball in his hands as many times as possible. You'll just be our quarterback.
Yeah, and they run the T formation, so he's touching the ball in every play and running it, a variation of that option offense. From 63 to 65, he was a starting quarterback as a sophomore. They go undefeated. They never lose a game.
That high school was undefeated for 8 years. I saw that. So 58 to his last year, 65 was their last undefeated season.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it really is kind of crazy when you think back of they were just the dominant team in New York, which is has to be a huge one, especially then.
Well, yeah, especially for football. Basketball, he was averaging 26 points as a senior, and in baseball, he's hitting 400. Mm-hmm. So he's got his choice to pretty much go, and because of his education and the educational opportunities, he can go wherever he wants to go.
Yes.
As far as in college, and during one of his visits, he visits Yale, and he visits the Yale Bowl before they play a game against Dartmouth, and what people don't know, the Yale Bowl is huge. There's 70,000 seats, and he's just said he could envision himself playing here. And, of course, it's Yale, so he goes and joins the football team while he's there, because they only have the academic scholarships.
Well, I thought it was just the landscape of college football at that time where he was just like, there's 70,000 people watching a really good Yale football team, but he could have gone to other powerhouses, but that really wasn't the case. You know what I mean? It was more of Yale is this prestigious school and I'm going to play football for him. And I thought I couldn't look and see if this was a race thing because we all know
it's the 60s, Chris, with men of their time.
Black guys just can't play quarterback because he comes in as a quarterback.
Yeah.
And
they tried him at linebacker, and after about a day of that, they're like, well, he's not going to play quarterback, but we're going to have him touch the ball all the time in our option offense.
And that was the thing, is it really works as they move him to halfback, and it's really, though, one of those things that you think could he have stayed as a quarterback, ran it in that T formation? You know what I mean?
Because he wanted to be Yale's first black quarterback. But we all know the alma mater of C. Montgomery Burns kind of maybe at this time is a little hesitant for that.
Very much.
So in 1965, Brian Dowling is the quarterback for this team, and they have an amazing chemistry together.
That was, I mean, if you look at it, you have to give it up to him because it really was. Dowling could throw the shit out of the ball, and he could really run. He was
catch it, and Hill could throw the ball too because he's a former quarterback.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think he even has a number of passing touchdowns. So like it really ended up being a great thing. But for him to come in as quarterback and then just be like, whoa, slow those brains.
So I say,
You call them student athletes. That's probably one of my favorites.
Kentucky Fried Gravy. 1966, he has 369 yards and a touchdown, 10 catches, 99 yards, and 2 touchdowns. 67, he has 5 rushing touchdowns and 2 receiving touchdowns. Also, 6 completions for 6 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Every time he throws the ball, it's a touchdown. But in 67, he's named first team all-conference, as well as the team finishing 8-1 by beating Harvard in that big game on November 25th, 1967. Dowling had a nice scramble touchdown pass to Hill in that game, where both are kind of the heroes. And then in 68, he just goes off.
And they have an undefeated season.
Mm-hmm.
And the 68 is like really where he kind of like says, I'm a serious running back because
I'm a pro prospect.
Because we'll look at this later where pro teams were not looking at these Ivy League colleges for guys coming out. They were just like, the brainiacs? Are you kidding?
We don't want mathletes in this bitch.
No.
We want athletes.
No, serious. That was the look. But he played unbelievable on this 68 year.
Yeah, it's 68, 680 rushing yards, an Ivy League leading 8 touchdowns on the ground, 24 catches for 532 yards. That's over 20 a clip for a running back. That's insane. 6 touchdowns, which tied for the Ivy League lead. He was the total yards from scrimmage leader with 1,212, and also with touchdowns and yards per catch, 7 completions and 4 touchdowns. He's Mr. Do Everything for this team. They had talked about how him and Dowling had such a chemistry. He compared Dowling to like the way that he played to like John Coltrane musically, which is pretty damn impressive. Like,
that's
watching
good.
some of that stuff. And what was it? They were in the Doonesbury. They were the basis for the Doonesbury cartoons.
Yeah.
One of the Yale
like little papers. And then I saw that he did end up playing some linebacker. So when they needed him to slot in there, he would kind of step in. Like you said, he was a do everything for this Yale team, which
Chris, sometimes you have to go both ways.
That's
when it calls for it, you have to.
This is 68, my man. This is not 69.
Throwing a 68 frame bang your way. So he's named honorable mention All-American by Associated Press and UPI, first team All-Ivy League school, and he also, during this time period, sets a school record for the outdoor triple jump for 2 years and the long jump and triple jump Ivy League champion.
I did see that, which I'm glad you brought that up because I was forgetting. I was ready to move on to his draft. He literally was still doing track and field, and he was their best triple jumper and long jumper. That's what an amazing athlete he was.
Well, so that's the thing we had talked about in the Metcalf episode. Metcalf's like 5'10", 180. You expect that to be a track athlete. Calvin Hill at this point is 6'4", 220 pounds doing this.
That's a
grown-ass man.
Well, when you see somebody with that much just like athletic ability and weight on them, you're like, oh, man, because it looks different. Like you were saying.
He looked like Carl Weathers in Predator. Like,
I don't want to talk about mass anymore. No, he's gaining mass.
You need to harvest. So let's get into
Stop cultivating.
Start harvesting.
But even though he has this unbelievable year, a lot of teams aren't looking at him as a top prospect for running back. So he kind of drops later than maybe his skill set he should or whatever.
How dare you get a bachelor's in history from one of this nation's finest academic institutions? You should be stealing shoes with Peter Warwick.
You are not wrong.
You're not.
That just skyrockets your draft stock.
Free Shoes University. So in the 69 draft, he's taken 24th overall by the Dallas Cowboys, our favorite team, Chris.
That's true.
Our favorite team. Because the draft isn't televised like it was now. It was basically, and even in the 90s, it's just a bunch of old men of their time smoking cigarettes and talking like Foghorn Leghorn.
It is very much the way fantasy football is now, where it's like 12 guys in a room. They're like, yeah, I'll take them.
Who's it?
Yeah. Who's left? All right.
So the Cowboys gave him a call, and he thought it was initially a joke until he heard Tom Landry speak to him, and he's like, oh, when dreams become reality, I'm a member of the Dallas Cowboys.
Well, he was just like, next time, say you're from the fucking Yankees, and he hung up. So,
is that you, Tolbert?
Is that you, Tolbert? My knees are killing me.
So the Cowboys were kind of deciding what to do with him because he did play other positions at Yale, and the Cowboys at this time, under Landry and Gil Brandt, the general manager, they were a very innovative franchise as far as scouting and drafting and developing players. They tried him out at tight end, they tried him out at linebacker, but it was very fortuitous, the Cowboys running back situation heading into 69.
So there was literally like 4 guys ahead of him. So like that was the thing. They drafted him because he was an amazing athlete. That's literally like
they would draft basketball players
Yes.
all the time during this. They drafted fucking Bob Hayes, who had a then record 100-meter dash at the Olympics.
That's why they brought him in, and they were like, we'll figure out what you do. And then literally it was like one instance after another where
it's
one
like
running
the Spinal
back
Tap drummer.
It really is. It was just like one retired, one
Don
exploded
Perkins.
on the bench.
One, Dan Reeves died in a bizarre gardening accident. Well, no, what happened was Don Perkins retired. Dan Reeves was recovering from off-season knee surgery, and Craig Banham
Had a
bruised ribs.
Yeah.
So in walks Calvin Hill as a rookie and just starts tearing the NFL to shreds. And which I think is awesome.
Me too. So that's the thing, is he probably wouldn't have gotten this opportunity. As soon as he got it, he was like, no, I'm the running back now, which you have to give it up to him, because making that jump from Yale, where everyone's just like, yeah, this smart boy.
That whole Yale thing.
And then coming into the Cowboys and then being like, well, you're not going to play running back here, to him, literally, it was like the second exhibit, their preseason games. It was the second one, and he didn't give up the running back until he... we'll see where he goes. One of the famous franchises after the Cowboys. But
to quote everyone's favorite propane and propane accessory salesman, you were a cowboy during the Landry years.
And he was the running back.
Yeah.
Like they bring in, like he'll split.
And that was the thing with Landry and then later Reeves. It was never like necessarily one bell cow. There was like a group of 3 dudes, but Hill emerges as like the number 1 guy, even as a rookie.
Yep.
942 yards on the ground, 8 touchdowns, 232 receiving yards, and was named the Offensive Rookie of the Year, first team All-Pro, and even threw 2 passing touchdowns. But he played most of the season hurt, and that's kind of something we'll discuss throughout his career.
These Hills, let me say this, because he broke his toe and didn't necessarily, and this was men of their era, reported as... Like, the Cowboys didn't know the extent of his injury, and they kind of were like,
well, the 9th game of the season, and he played all year.
Yeah, and they were like, we'll still play you. They kept injecting him, and it kind of fucked him up, which it really is
These
something.
Hills.
They play too much on being injured, and that's, I mean...
You win the genetic lottery in literally everything except one small detail.
But you have to love their tenacity. That's the thing
it's amazing.
And it really is with him and his son, where you're just like, no, you couldn't take him out of those games.
These are tough SOBs,
Yep.
let me just tell you. They end up making the playoffs, but losing to the Browns 38-14. But you're thinking everything's great, but in 1970, he has an infected blister and a back injury, and the Cowboys also draft another running back in the first round in future Super Bowl MVP Dwayne Thomas.
Well, I feel like you were saying, with Landry running 3 different running backs.
And Walt Garrison was in the mix there too. Yeah.
If this was nowadays, people would be like, whoa, looks like he got his job replaced. And if like you were actually in and watching it, you were like, yeah, that they needed another rotate. He doesn't want to.
Well, I mean, that's the way the game's played now. I mean, you can count on one hand
That's
the number
true.
of teams with like one, bell cow back.
They
It's
definitely
generally
rotate,
like 2 to 3 guys for every franchise. Limited to only 12 games. only 577 yards and 4 touchdowns. And they go into the postseason, and he doesn't play at all this postseason. And it's a shame because the Cowboys are really good, and they make their first Super Bowl in a game which featured our old friend Earl Morrall coming off the bench. We need to do an episode on this game because it is the most bumblefuck cluster of turnovers and mistakes probably in Super Bowl history. The Cowboys end up losing on a last-second field goal, 16-13. But roll into 71. Hill's hurt again.
Yeah, it's a constant thing where
it's an ACL injury.
And he ends up missing 6 games, and he tries to come back for the NFC Championship
Still
game.
11 touchdowns in the regular season and 700-plus total yards. That's amazing on a bad knee.
Yep.
In the divisional round, he actually scores a touchdown against the 49ers. And then they go on to the NFC title game and emerge in a victory and go to another Super Bowl where they play the Dolphins.
It says he did re-injure, and this was the kind of thing that I have to say. So he plays through this re-injuring because he's just like, no, this is the playoffs. You're not taking me out. And 71 Super Bowl, they go up against the Dolphins.
Fresh off their Chiefs victory on Christmas Day. Look at all these episodes coming back. Sorry.
So good.
He ends up playing in the game, 25 rushing yards. Playing on a bad, that's so amazing.
Really bad knee. That's what they were saying was like, no. You could see him limping out there.
It's like, I missed the last Super Bowl. I'm not missing this one.
Yep.
And they absolutely Uncle Slippy Fisk the Dolphins as far as the Dolphins don't even score a touchdown. They win 24-3, and they rack up 252 total rushing yards between Hill, Garrison, and Thomas as well as probably Staubach. 72. This is his bounce back year, though. This is probably one of his finest NFL seasons.
Well, they trade Thomas, and that's the big thing.
Well, because he was I don't know if you know anything about him, but he was like a huge malcontent. Just really dickish, and Landry had enough of him. So he's like, come on, Calvin, stay healthy.
And that's what you see at this point where he kind of becomes more of a main back, and he's like the first Cowboy to ever break 1,000 yards.
Which is amazing.
In this system is even amazing because he just doesn't get as many carries as maybe somebody else. And that's what you see that Calvin's just a fucking great running back. Coming off the Super Bowl victory, too. That's what...
Yeah, 1,036 yards, 6 touchdowns, 43 catches. He was a really good pass receiver. I don't think a lot of people kind of know that about him. 364 yards, 3 touchdowns. Also, just another passing touchdown, just because.
Well, also, he was a great football player.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, literally, he does everything.
Had he played linebacker, he would have made the Pro Bowl.
Yeah. I bet he was a great blocker, just like little shit that you're just like, oh, yeah, I bet he was really. He could
have kicked field goals.
There you go.
There's that foreign kid who doesn't wear a shoe. I think we've all had enough of that nonsense.
Oh, man.
They have a thrilling win, actually, this year in the divisional round against the 49ers. Staubach comes off the bench. And win 30-28. I believe they had like 16 points in the fourth quarter to come back and win. In that game, Hill had over 100 yards with 125. They end up going to the divisional round next week, but end up going to the NFC Championship and lose 26-3 to the, I believe, since it's 72, it would have been the Redskins. They get absolutely ass blasted by Washington in that game.
Yep.
73, guess what he does? He just makes another Pro Bowl. This is second team Pro Bowl, but it's still, he is like one of the best running backs in this era of, Cowboy. A lot of running backs.
Yeah.
Career highs in carries, 273. Rush yards, 1,142. 6 touchdowns. 32 grabs for 290 yards. They win the NFC East. Beat the Rams in the divisional round. Then they lose to the Vikings.
Yep.
And, I don't know if they would have won that game. They would have beat Miami. That was probably Miami's best team of the 3 consecutive Super Bowls they made. But 74, Pro Bowl again. Pro Bowl again for Calvin. 844 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns. But the Cowboys have kind of a down year where they missed the playoffs. They only go 8-6. This was the year the St. Louis Cardinals won the division with Eric Metcalf's father.
It's pretty good.
Actually, the St. Louis Cardinals.
I know.
Not the baseball team, but This was kind of an interesting season, though, not only for the Cowboys, but for everyone in the NFL. There was an upstart league being started called the World Football League, and they were putting teams in cities that did not have them, and they were paying out the ass for NFL stars to try and acquire them and get butts and seats.
And it was a common practice of when a league would pop up, they'd be like, look at all this money. Isn't it cool to live in where, you know what I mean?
Bobby Hull, anybody?
Yep. And this, I mean, to be honest, Calvin kind of dipped right into it. So he was drafted in the first round.
Second round, actually.
Oh, second
14th
round.
overall.
Oh, yeah, 14th.
And he signs with the Hawaiians. That's just the name of the team, the Hawaiians. Playing it on that god-awful AstroTurf at Aloha Stadium. And, well, he suffers a torn ACL on his right knee, unfortunately. And is kind
Well,
of
you play on AstroTurf.
Yeah, playing on that. Oh, man, that old AstroTurf was dog shit.
And he played 3 games, and then the league folded.
Yeah, the league folds, and he's like, well, still kind of want to play football. And April 3rd, 1976, he signs with not the Dallas Cowboys, but the Dallas Cowboys' biggest rivals, the Washington Redskins.
The Comanches.
The Comanches. The Commanders.
Oh, my bad.
Same thing.
But he pretty much, at this point, though, because he has so many knee injuries, he really is thought at as like a second quarterback. And I thought it was interesting because they referenced him at this point as a third down.
Because he
back.
could catch the ball.
Yep.
He could still do enough. He was a very smart football player, which is what you want out of your third down back.
But he wasn't.
He couldn't stay on the field.
Yeah, he wasn't an every down back anymore, and that's kind of where we see him get moved with the Redskins.
Yeah, he only had just over 500 yards rushing in his 2 seasons there and 25 receptions. So you're thinking his career is kind of done because he's in his mid-30s right now.
And he retires.
And he retires on September 25th, on August 7th, 1978. But he doesn't stay retired for long, Chris. He's got that hunger.
Well, I wonder if it was really because it says the thing that I read was the Browns convinced him to come out of retirement. I wonder if he was more like, are any teams interested? The Browns were like, yeah. And then he was like, all right, let's do it. You know what I mean?
The Browns are starting to put together a pretty good team in the late 70s, and we see it all kind of come to a head in 1980 with the Cardiac Kids group with Brian S.E.P and Dave Logan and Ozzie Newsome, and Calvin's a big part of this as their third down back. In 4 seasons with Cleveland, 516 rush yards, 2 touchdowns, 107 catches for 1,248 yards, and 16 TDs near the goal line, man. If you're not throwing to Ozzie or Dave Logan, you're looking for Calvin Hill.
It really is a hallmark to think of a guy coming out of retirement, playing 4 seasons, getting 4 touchdowns. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I read something that he was just always like a really big locker room guy. Like you were saying, that's why Thomas got traded, was people couldn't stand to fucking be around him.
Just be a normal person.
But Calvin was just one of those guys that you were just like, yeah, no, we want him on our team. And that, I think, is
he can help my kids with their math homework.
Yeah, no shit.
He almost got to a Super Bowl in 1980. They end up losing that famous Red Right 88 game. Their kicker, Don Cockcroft, had been just absolutely crap all day because of the crappy conditions.
He was fucking Cockcroft in it.
Cockcroft in it, yeah. And then S.E.P throws a pick on Red Right 88 to the Raiders, and they end up losing in the divisional round. But he retires after the 1981 season, and he has quite the life after football. Quite the interesting life.
Well, I like to think that, I mean, he ends up marrying this woman who works for the Pentagon.
Named Janet.
They end up
a roommate of a certain presidential candidate who lost to a reality star. See what I did there? We're not going to get struck.
That was good. It really is an interesting life, and it's an interesting life that you see post-career that his son grows up in.
Yeah, it's not, I shouldn't say not normal, but it's something you don't see every day.
Well, I feel like it's normal for Washington area or DC area, you know what I mean? Like those kids were normal, like, yeah, my mom's going to the Pentagon, you know what I mean? But for like any other state, they're just like, what are you talking about? Because it is very political based. It is very like education based. Which
is good for a kid to grow up in, especially one like we'll discuss in our next episode. Calvin was on the board of directors for almost a decade with the Baltimore Orioles.
He was such a great athlete that the Orioles, and a great guy, the Orioles were like, yeah, you should be on our staff for a decade. You're just like, no, I didn't play professional baseball. We know.
You're just a leader.
Yep.
He worked with a lot of troubled players in Dallas and Cleveland as far as substance abuse. Got involved with that. In 1970, the Calvin Hill Daycare Center was established in New Haven, Connecticut, where Yale is, to help Yale families out, which he just seems like a nice guy.
Yep.
He got an honorary doctorate from Yale in 2016, where they referred to him as a Yale legend. That's amazing. Finished his NFL career, just some stats here. 4 Pro Bowls, 1 Rookie of the Year, 1 Super Bowl, over 6,000 rushing yards and 42 touchdowns, almost 2,900 receiving yards and 23 touchdowns, which is like, if he was healthy, that's borderline Hall of Fame right there. Like, he was that good of a player, but not too many people know who he is now because of his son.
So we'll get into that.
Yep.
Thank you all for tuning in. Next episode, Bobby Hill.
Bobby Hill, that's right. Does it come with a hat?